And we are back, episode number 17, Daru Strong Podcast. Today, I had the opportunity to talk to a very large, strong individual by the name of Jon Heck. We're talking 300 plus pounds, 6'7", but he's also the strength and conditioning coach for University of North Carolina, the head strength and conditioning coach. Had a great talk on how he goes about implementing proper tier system protocols and programming to help his athletes, also how he develops that program and how he gets the guys ready to go on game day. We also talk about his own personal competitions and what he does in the powerlifting and strongman world, and now how he's getting back into that strength sport atmosphere and competing there. And then also we go into other forms of training, and also, again, my two great questions that I have for every guest, which is the daily routine and also what does a strong person mean to him. But before we do so, had to make sure I shout out the sponsors, Revive MD, ReviveSups.com. Check them out. You can try out my very own Phil Daru Athlete Stack that is available now. If you use the discount code DaruStrong20, you'll get 20% off your final purchase. In there, you have things like vitamin D3, K2, also omega-3s. You also have stuff for adrenal support. You also have stuff for multivitamins, multi-minerals. The list goes on and on with that stack. I truly believe in it. I use it myself, and I have my athletes use it. So make sure you check it out at ReviveSups.com. Also, I also want to make sure that you guys, if you are a coach, if you're a strength and conditioning coach looking for a credible certification to get, I truly believe in the CPPS certification by Joe DeFranco and Jim Smith, Smitty. These guys have been very, I would say, more of a source for me to look at and learn from these individuals for a very long time, right? Everything that they do, everything that they stand for from a coaching perspective, from a man perspective. If you guys really want to learn how to train individuals, how to train athletes, general public, and do it in the right manner, do it with efficiency, effectiveness, check out the CPPS certification. I highly recommend it. Make sure that you go ahead and you tell them that I sent you here at the Daru Strong Podcast. Again, CPPS, right? Certified Physical Preparation Specialist certification course. Check it out. Go to their website. I have no real ties to it, but I truly believe in it. And I think that if any coach is looking to get a certification worth having, that's the one. All right, now on to the podcast.
Welcome to the Daru Strong Podcast. Daru Strong Podcast.
Let's go. Mind over matter. Put your mind somewhere else and keep going. That little voice in your head is trying to stop you from getting to where you want to be. Be successful and keep moving forward.
With your host and world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, Phil Daru.
I didn't want to go into a career I wasn't passionate about. I wanted to do something that I love. And I had been spending years playing football, which I didn't love. And then I was like, all right, I've got the opportunity to be my own man and kind of carve out my own path. I don't have to be a football player anymore. I don't have to follow my dad's footsteps and do what everyone expects me to do. I'm going to go do my own thing. Yeah. And it was the right decision. So as soon as I got done playing football, I started working at a private sector facility called D1 Sports Training. Mm-hmm. From there, I got hired by the Carolina Panthers strength and conditioning staff. Spent a year with them, and that was kind of, I learned most of what I know, I learned from the head strength coach of the Carolina Panthers, Joe Kent. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously one of the OGs in you know, football strength and conditioning in general. And, you know, I learned a lot from him. He was kind of my biggest mentor in this game. And then when I got done working for the Panthers, ended up getting hired back at UNC, and I'm entering my third season with them now as a strength and conditioning coach for the football team.
Gotcha. So, yeah, to go through that, like 6'7", 300-pound plus, right? But you were talented. It wasn't like you were like a not a starter. You had talent. So you were going that route and then taking a step, well, not even take a step back, but take a side step and going to a route that you feel that you have more passion for, which was the strength and conditioning world. Now with that, I know your dad is now, he's a coach in the NFL, right?
He's the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. So
Gotcha.
he got him a Super Bowl ring this past year.
There you go. That's perfect, man. So
Yep.
as a coach and as a father, was he receptive to it? Like, did he was like, oh, that's great, or was he like, oh man, I think you should have went the route of NFL? But what do you think?
Having that conversation with him, that was, I mean, I sat in my car for probably 2 hours just rehearsing what I was going to say to him before I called him. I mean, it was like one of the scariest moments of my life to have to tell my dad, who he was my biggest mentor and hero and idol growing up. And, he taught me everything I knew about being a football player and being a man. And he saw me on this path because, following in his footsteps. So I was scared to have that conversation, but he my whole life, he was always a dad first and a coach second. I think a lot of those dads who are kind of the overbearing coach, it's because they didn't have athletic success themselves. So they want to live vicariously through their son or their daughter. Whereas my dad, he had all the success in the world. He was a national champion at Notre Dame, 12-year starter in the NFL, So he didn't have to live vicariously through me. He understood what it's like growing up in that pressure position as an athlete. So he was always my biggest supporter and, a dad first. So when I told him, he got it. He supported it. I think he was surprised, but at the end of the day, he understood. He gave me his full support, and that meant the world to me.
Yeah. So do you have any kids or no?
Nope.
Not
I'm
yet.
just 26 years old and no
Man,
kids yet.
you're young, man. Damn, I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of life left in you, bro. That's great. Cause like for me, growing up, being an athlete all my life, I played college football. I was a professional fighter. My son is 5 years old now, so for me, I'm like, do whatever you want to do. Like, I don't even really put anything in like a football in his hand or anything like that. Yeah, we'll play and we'll wrestle around, but I'm really just trying to find out what he wants to do. And that's something that I believe that your dad probably did for you, was like, you know what, we're going to give him opportunities to do whatever he wants to do, whatever he's good at, then we can pursue that going further. And I think that's what a father should be. It should be somebody who can guide their son or their daughter in the right direction to where they think that they are going to want to be, with the passion that they can put in and pursue it with success. Now, going further on, right, you started off with Joe Ken, and then you got the full-time job at North Carolina. When you got there, were you automatically the head guy, or were you working under somebody?
Nope. I was working under a coach. So I got there, and I was working for the staff that was currently there, and that staff has since ended up getting fired, and ended up being retained by the new staff that came in. Mac Brown came in, and Hall of Fame head coach, and he's absolutely turned this program around, and it's been amazing to work for him. And I was just honored to be retained.
That's one thing that I see a lot in collegiate sports, especially in the industry, in the coaching industry in general. It's like it's very short-lived with with their careers, and they have to be able to move consistently. I have a good friend of mine, Drew Wilson, who is the head strength guy for University of Colorado. He tells me all the time, it's like you might be there for one season and then gone the next. How have you been able to not only sustain that success there, but also, help your guys out and get them to the best possible position to play on Saturdays? Does it take a certain mindset, or does it take, organization and skill practice and all that stuff? Where does your mindset come in when you're taking over an organization like that?
I mean, the biggest thing, a huge part of us as a strength staff, I mean, we're kind of establishing that culture in the team. When we get the guys at the beginning of the offseason, we're getting them first before any of the football coaches have even had a chance to work with them. Those new freshmen come in, they're going to us first. So the football staff is kind of looking to us to be the guys that kind of set the tone with those players, to establish the standard of the team, to establish a standard of discipline, to establish a standard of culture. So by the time the football coaches do get them in training camp, the guys are coachable. The guys, they already know what's expected of them. When they line up for practice, they're sharp, they're dialed in, and they're in shape. Most importantly, they're in shape, they're healthy, they're strong, they're mobile, and when they come into training camp, their body, their weapon, it's ready to go. but then we've also just built that big team culture. And that's something that we've really taken pride in as a staff. Just every day when we're coaching, we're just bringing in energy and juice. And every single day, day in and day out, we're going to be that outlet for the team. And, you know, we've got to create that energy for the team sometimes, and be the group that the team feeds off of energy wise. And I think that's important as a strength staff for a football team.
Yeah, especially for like young kids, the college kids, I believe, right? Not so much. Can you explain to me like the difference between an NFL strength and conditioning coach and a collegiate strength and conditioning coach? I know they're two different worlds.
Totally different setups. So, I mean, in college, you're dealing with kids that are 18 to 21 years old. You know, they come in, they're not yet physically developed where they need to be to play football at an elite level. You know, some of the freaks are, but most of those kids come in, they're not quite there physically, and they're definitely not quite there, you know, on a maturity level. So, you know, in the college level, usually the strength coach, you're in a disciplinary role, you're in an authority role, you know, whereas in the NFL, you're dealing with dudes ranging from age 21 to 41. I mean, those guys are, you know, they've got money. They're smart. They're grown men that can think for themselves. So, you know, in an NFL strength and conditioning setting, you're not so much an authority figure or a disciplinary figure. You're more of a colleague.
Yeah.
So, you know, with a lot of those older guys who've been around for a minute, who know their body, whereas in college, we're more telling the kid what they're doing. In the NFL, we might have a conversation with a veteran guy. Hey, what do you feel like you need? You know what I mean? And it's more of a collaboration. Whereas in the NFL, we're just trying to help prepare them to be the best professional athlete they can be, so they can be healthy, make it through a full 16-week season, and make their money. Whereas, and we don't know how long we're going to have them in the NFL. You know, some guys, they come in, you got them for a few weeks, it's like a revolving door. Guys are getting cut left and right. Whereas in college, generally speaking, you know, when a kid comes in, you're going to have him for 3, 4, if not 5 years. So very different process, very different way you deal with the players, speak to the players, and just your role is just a little bit different.
I can imagine, what is it like from like 22 all the way up to probably like 40? That age range is so big. It's the same thing that I go with, you know, I go through with a lot of my fighters. I'll have some of these kids that are like 19, 20 years old, and then I'll have like a UFC veteran like an Andrei Arlovsky who's been fighting for years and decades, and they're just totally different on how I have to train them, and they know what they need. They know their body a lot better than the young kids. Now, I've been working with a lot of recently I've been working with my high school football team, believe it or not. I have 60 kids.
I know, I've been seeing your content. Looks great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from you, that's great. I appreciate that. So Deerfield Beach High School is one of the best schools that we have down here in South Florida for talent, right? We had over 15 Division I recruits. The thing with me,
I know about Deerfield. I grew up in Florida. Played high school football in Northeast Florida. Yeah, I'm from Jacksonville.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I know
exactly. I didn't know you grew up in Florida. All right.
Yes, sir. My dad was the O-line coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars for most of my life. So spent most of my life in Florida.
What year did you graduate, by the way?
2011.
Okay,
that was my senior year. That was my senior year of high school, and then true freshman year at UNC is 2012.
Nice.
Graduated in 2016.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, so when I see these kids, and when we started to take over the program, super talented, super athletic, powerful, you know, very explosive, very fast, but they lacked general movement quality, right? They lacked their ability to have intermuscular coordination. Again, just kind of getting them underneath load and having them be efficient underneath load. From a college strength coach perspective, right? If I have a guy, me being high school strength coach, what is the main things that you see, or would you want a high school strength and conditioning coach to help with, you know, getting your guys ready to go to that next level?
You hit the nail on the head. So when our new freshmen come in, we've got a program called Block Zero that I run. And that's a term coined by Joe Ken, where it's basically these kids come in and we're teaching them movement. Before, we're not loading a bar, we are teaching them how to properly move. So, you know, when these high school kids come in talking about, oh, you know, I'm a 600-pound squatter, 400-pound bench, or this and that, I mean, we roll our eyes and that's a red flag, because 90% of the time, those 600-pound squatters in high school are the stiffest, worst movers you're going to get. So we'll take the kid that can come in, do pull-ups, glute ham raises, is efficient on a single leg, who knows how to breathe and brace properly, who has good mobility. We'll take that, even if he's undersized and weak, over, the big, stiff, bad mover who can load up the bar. Because with the lighter, weaker kid, we've got him for years. He's 18 years old. Trust me, in 3 years in our program, we're going to get him big and strong. But when those kids come in, we've got an 8-week progression just teaching them how to squat, how to power clean. So week 1, they don't have a bar in their back. They're doing a kettlebell goblet squat on the coach's slow cadence with a pause. And we are just teaching perfect squat mechanics. And then, a couple weeks later, we'll go to a double kettlebell front squat. A few weeks later, we'll go to a barbell front squat. Then we'll put a bar in their back, squat to a box, and then we'll take the box away, free squat with a bar in their back, week 8. So, I mean, it is a lengthy progression, just teaching movement before they've even got a bar in their back. And that's the way we want it, because we know at the end of those 8 weeks, now for the remaining 4 years of their career, they're good movers. They can squat properly. They can clean properly. Everything we're going to ask them to do in the weight room, they can do it with proficient technique. They know how to breathe and brace. They can do it all safely. So now we can we can step on the gas and we can load the bar up now that they know how to move. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, those high school kids, just teaching them movement. That is the biggest thing for us.
Yeah, that was when I went in there and I seen what they were doing. They were basically just doing like bodybuilding type movements and machine based workouts. And I was like, all right, we need to reevaluate everything. So getting them to understand the basic positions, the movement patterns possible, not only for the direct correlation to the sport, but just to be a better athlete in general. So that was one thing we did. We did about 4 weeks of sled work, so that they can understand how to produce force in an advantageous position, as opposed to just putting a barbell on their back and having them go for it. And then I got one of the things that are like more of the gatekeeper exercises of making sure that they can do a proper goblet squat, and I can see true mobility up the kinetic chain. So a lot of times I'm seeing like stiff ankles, I'm seeing stiff hips, I'm seeing tight thoracic. Now, for you, not going with, if a kid came in with great genetics and great overall technique in the weight room, what are you seeing? What are the common dysfunctions that you're seeing an individual come in with, and how do you go about getting them corrected?
Yeah, so a lot of common dysfunctions we'll see, particularly with the bigger guys, very bad unilateral strength. You try to get them to do a single leg movement, their balance and strength on one leg is awful. Relative strength is usually bad. I mean, trying to get guys to do pull-ups or, a proper glute ham raise or, dips, push-ups, even things like that. You'd be surprised. We get a lot of those guys, like I said, especially the big guys, they're very bad at it. Usually a lot of the skill guys, the speed guys, they tend to be, some of the freakier athletes we'll get. So when it comes to movement ability and especially the field work, some of those guys will come in and be pretty impressive right out of the gate. But those are the guys who are usually undersized and weak. Now, one thing we do deal with a football team is you've got a ton of different builds, across different position groups. Even within the same position group, look at the wide receiver room. You've got your 6'5", tall, skinny, basketball-built receiver, and then you've also got your 5'10", short, stocky slot receiver guy. So, I mean, we look at these two totally different builds, and they move very differently. When we try to get them to squat, for the tall, long-legged, skinny-built receiver, we might not be doing a barbell back squat for that kid. Some of those kids, just the way they're built, they're not, we find a movement that's going to work for them, that's going to suit their anatomy. So, when these guys come in, it's usually develop unilateral strength, teach them how to breathe and brace. That's a big thing. A lot of these kids, they don't know how to brace the core when they're under load. Get them to be able to master body weight movements. The skill guys, get them bigger and stronger, and then just kind of finding what movements are going to work for different builds.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we talk about different body types. Now, what about positions too as well? I know there's a difference, obviously, from your skills guys, your combos, and your bigs. What are the difference from a programming perspective, but also from an exercise selection standpoint?
Yeah, so we pretty in depth with that. We separate the big combos and the skills in terms of their program. So they'll do a lot of the same foundational movements, the squat, the pressing, and all that. But then we'll break them into different groups and get pretty position specific with them. So we've got it's a GPS system. So we basically, I don't know if you've seen these things. We put a little sensor chip in kind of like a little spandex sports bra thing. We put it on our guys in practices and games, and we'll track the amount of distance that they're covering in a practice or a game, the velocities that they're running, how many of the yardages that they're covering in a practice were high speed yardages, things like that. So we'll break down that data and get a good snapshot. Okay, how much running volume in a practice are the offensive linemen actually getting versus how much running volume are the receivers getting, and how many of those yardages are high speed yardages. And we'll kind of take that data, we'll use it to program our field work and our conditioning work. So, we kind of know the big guys, this is kind of the volume that they're going to be operating in a practice or a game in terms of running volumes. So we'll tailor their conditioning there. And then with the receivers, we get a good snapshot of the high speed volumes they're covering in practices and games. So we'll use that data to help, periodize and program a lot of their sprint work, things like that. As far as the weight room, the big boys are going to be doing bigger, heavier compound lifts, heavy trap bar deadlifts. We've got them doing Zercher squats right now, things like that. Whereas the skill guys, they're more single leg focused, plyometric focused, things like that.
Okay, so that's great. So like when you get into the season now, is that just more of maintenance where they're just working correctives and maybe some single leg stuff? Or are you still kind of putting in some of those compound lifts for the bigs, at least for the bigs, to keep that strength up?
Yeah, so we'll absolutely keep those compound lifts in. We're mainly just going to manipulate the volume, and we're going to shorten the duration of the sessions. So we'll break the team up into groups according to training status. Basically, we've kind of got our block zero guys. These are kids who need to learn. These are kids we need to get them stronger. We are going to train these kids in season. And then there's kind of a hierarchy. At the very top, you've got our elite dudes. These are guys we don't really need to get them bigger or stronger. They're freaks. We are just trying to, keep them powerful, keep them explosive, keep them firing, don't hurt them. So the guys like that, they'll have some more, specialty, complex programming, a lot of more dynamic effort, things like that. And then you kind of look in our middle tier groups. We'll look at guys, say, if there's a guy who we feel like he's not playing a lot, he's not getting a ton of reps in games, he's got a little bit of room to train, we'll train him. We'll give him a little more volume, we'll load him up a little bit more. Whereas if a guy is a starter, he's taking a pounding, every game, we'll reduce the volume a lot for him. We'll reduce the duration of the session. He'll still squat, he'll still bench, he'll still clean, but that volume is going to be heavily reduced, and there will be a lot more dynamic effort incorporated.
So in season, are you guys running? I know the frequency drops too as well. So are you doing more of like a 3-day split or a 2-day split even? What's that look like?
So we'll train 3 days in season for the guys who play. For the freshmen who don't travel, they'll train on an 4th day. But for the guys who do play, it's a 3-day split. 2 of those days being, pretty solid training sessions. That third one coming the day after a game, being more of a flush out rejuvenation type lift.
Okay. So explain to me a little bit, because I know some of the listeners probably don't know about the tier system. Can you give me like a blanketed layout of that and what it entails?
Yeah. So the tier system, it's a system developed by Joe Ken, and so it's essentially a template. It doesn't have predetermined exercise selections necessarily. It's just total body train. Every session is a total body training session. And the true traditional tier system, it's a 3-day split, 3 days in the weight room and then 4 days in the field. All 3 of those days in the weight room are total body. So you're going to hit an upper body, a lower body, and a total body movement. So generally the week will be it'll go in the order of TLU, meaning day one, the priority movement, total body movement. So that might be a power clean. It might be a trap bar deadlift, something like that. Then the tier 2 of that day, the L standing for lower, will be a second tier lower body movement. So if tier 1 lower body movement was a barbell back squat, then maybe a tier 2 lower body movement is, a rear foot elevated dumbbell split squat, something like that. And then tier 3 being the U on that first day of the week, that's a tier 3 upper body movement. That might be a single arm press, something like that. All right, so that's day 1 of the week. Then it rotates. The second day, the priorities change. All right, so now that upper body, it's going to be ULT, meaning the priority movement, tier 1 of the session is upper body. So that's going to be, a big bench press, a standing overhead press, a big compound upper body press. And then, go to the third day. Now the L is the tier 1. So that's going to be your big squat, if that makes sense. So you're just every day's total body. You're just rotating which day gets the priority.
Yeah, and the intensities change based on the day, basically, right?
Correct.
The focus of the intensity.
Yeah. So generally, that priority 1 movement is going to be you're training it for strength. That tier, that second tier, you might be training it for dynamic effort. That third tier, it's going to be a volume hypertrophy.
Now, with the dynamic effort, are you doing that high intensity strength work, or is that going to be after for more of that power endurance type work?
It's actually after. So
yeah,
he's a big believer in training explosive movements in a fatigue state, because just the thought process being, we're playing 4 quarters of football. We don't just need to be explosive in the first quarter. We got to be maximally explosive in the fourth quarter. So he believes in, training guys to be explosive in a state of fatigue.
You've seen, and I know you've probably seen tremendous success with that, obviously, with the program that you're running. Now, is there any way that you're managing fatigue from an objective standpoint and obviously a subjective standpoint? Is there anything like an HRV monitor that you're utilizing or anything like that?
Yeah, so we've done different things over the years. We've played around with HRV stuff. We had a system called Sparta, where it's just a force plate. They stand on the force plate, they do a jump, land, and then the plate assesses their landing mechanics and kind of picks out some muscular imbalances, things like that. And then the strength staff, we're working very closely with the sports medicine staff, and we're looking at all the GPS data that we're accumulating. And we've kind of got our GPS analyst. He does a lot of work, basically taking all that data and getting a sense of, hey, this guy's been getting more workload during this week than we'd like him to. We're going to back him down on that final practice of the week. So we're really using that GPS system to stay on top of how much volume these dudes are getting in practice. And if a guy's kind of pushing it, where we can see, hey, he's really kind of surpassing the volumes that we'd like to see him in, at this point during the week leading up to a game, then we'll talk to his coach, say, hey, we got to cut that guy's reps in the next practice. Or we might even tell the coach that during a practice, because we can live track the GPS data during the practice. We've got a laptop set up, and we're looking at the data, come to us as the players are running live. So, I mean, if we notice a player, he's really accumulating a lot of workload in a given practice, we'll go up to his coach, 5 minutes later and say, hey, he might have 5 more reps left, and then we got to cut him. So that's been a big part of objectively managing fatigue with the guys.
Yeah. So are the coaches receptive to that, or do they no, he's got to practice, he's got to train hard, this and that? Or are they just no, we get it, with the data that you're showing us, they're more understanding of it?
It's
don't let me get you in trouble, by the way. Don't let me get you in trouble. I know how that goes.
Depends
man.
on the coach. I will say, on the current staff, we're very fortunate where we've got a football staff who trust the strength staff, and they kind of let us do our thing. I will say I have been on staffs where it was not the case, where you go and tell the coach, hey, we need to cut a guy, and you get instant blowback. And because those position coaches, they got to make money too. They gotta, their players aren't showing out on Saturdays, it looks bad on them. So they don't want their star guy being pulled out of the drill necessarily. But the smart ones, they understand if the strength staff is telling them, hey, we got to cut this guy down. We're not trying to take reps away from a kid. We're trying to put him in the best position to ball out on Saturday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, it's funny, and they should know that now, you being a player, especially being a player at that school, I think that you have more authority in actually being able to tell them, you know, what's what, because they trust you. They know where you've been. You know, they know what you've done, and especially being a part of that sport. You know what I'm saying? I think it does play a big role. It helped me, at least for the MMA side, where a lot of the fighters and a lot of the coaches, because they knew that I fought before, so they know that I've been through these certain situations, and I know how to push forward. I know how to pull back in certain ways. Now, that's really good. When it comes down to, like, when I want to kind of backtrack a little bit, but when it comes down to when you get an athlete, what is like the basic assessment? Are you doing like an FMS? Or are you doing anything like that? Or you got your own thing going on?
Yeah, so we'll put them they'll go through an FMS, and then we'll also we've kind of got a few little tests we'll put them through ourselves. You know, we'll kind of do an ankle dorsiflexion. We've got a few things we'll look at with their hip. Basically just, does this guy have the ability to squat safely? Things like that. And so we'll go through the FMS, and then we've got a few little things we'll look at as far as, you know, ankle dorsiflexion and hip mobility and their ability to brace the core, things like that.
Yeah. So you do put a large emphasis on breathing and bracing that intra-abdominal pressure. I believe that's kind of like the cornerstone. If you don't have proximal stability, it's not going to enhance distal mobility, the old Stu McGill saying. And I do believe that. I tell you this, though. The problem with that is a lot of kids are so used to being upper chest breathers and mouth breathers, especially the young kids. I see that now, is that they're just breathing through their mouth, and it's almost like a rite of passage to breathe through your mouth, almost like I see them, you know, with their hands on top of their head, breathing through their mouth. Not really the most optimal way of breathing and bringing in oxygen. So I think that would be a great deal, is at least finding out how well they can diaphragmatic breathe to bring down their body stress levels and get back to that parasympathetic state. Now, the dorsiflexion, now, do you feel like the squat, or is it like an overhead squat, or is it just a basic squat?
So they'll do an overhead squat in their initial screening.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's tough for most of these dudes.
Yeah.
But they'll do an overhead squat barefoot.
Gotcha. So are you, and then like I said, if they have all the things passed, right, and they have that structural integrity, to have that mobility, are you going to put them on a back squat, or are you going to go ahead and go through that basic system of, you know, getting them single leg work and then getting the movement down and then getting them back to a back squat?
So they'll still go through the whole system. But that kind of gives us an idea, hey, what are some deficiencies in this kid we can be aware of right out of the gate?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we kind of look at this initial assessment, go down the list of guys, say, all right, we're about to start working with these dudes. I've already got a good sense. I've already got an idea this guy is probably going to be a bad mover on the squat. He's got very poor mobility in the ankles. He's got very poor this and that. Whereas, all right, this guy freaking crushed his assessment. We'll put him through still the block 0, but we can probably start loading him a little bit more quicker than the other guys. So it just gives us an idea of kind of what we're dealing with ahead of time and what to expect, because, I mean, we've met these kids maybe during their recruiting visits, but other than that, we get a big group of freshmen all of a sudden that we've never worked with before. We've got to, you know, train them. So it helps to have an idea of who and what we're dealing with ahead of time.
For sure. So when you go through the assessments, are you bringing them in like all together, or is it like one by one or groups?
So they'll all come in together. It was like this past week we had all of our players came back from the lockdown. Well, I shouldn't say all of them. We brought back a first wave of 40 players, and the first thing they had to do upon return was we opened up our indoor facility for 2 hours and gave them a 2-hour window. Hey, you guys got to come in here. You got to get swabbed for COVID, and then you got to go through the whole FMS screening, because we haven't worked with any of these guys in 3 months. We have no idea what they've been doing. We need to get this assessment, see where dude's at now that they're all returning. So 40 guys came in, and then they, you know, just kind of had a 2-hour window to get in with sports medicine, go through the FMS and all that. And then we're just in there working with the sports medicine team, recording all the information.
Gotcha. That's good that you have like the sports medicine side, and because like right now for me, I literally had to assess 60 players by myself this whole past 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're lucky. We've got some good resources with the football team. We've got a big staff, all hands on deck. So we work closely with the sports medicine staff. We work closely with the nutrition staff. It's a big team effort.
Yeah, that's great, man. All right, so getting more into you, right? So you decided you're going to be a strength coach, but I know from personal experiences, right, after you're done with your career, you still have that competitive drive, right? You still want to be an athlete. You still want to do something and compete. You say you started off in powerlifting. Now, how did that all come about? Were you just like, all right, man, I'm just going to do a meet? Or was it I got into a gym and then I started lifting with some guys and then I decided to do a meet then?
So, I mean, I knew as soon as I was done playing football, I was going straight into competitive lifting. I mean, like I said, I'd fallen in love with lifting. My summer training, that was like my in-season. So as soon as I made that call where I knew I was going to, hang it up with football when I finished my senior year, I mean, I was already making plans for powerlifting. I was already writing my program. I was excited. So when I graduated, I graduated in December. I did my first meet the following May, or the May after I graduated. I did my first meet. It was a USPA meet, and I was absolutely hooked at that point. I competed. I got my ass whipped by some strong dudes, and they just lit a fire under me.
Where did you compete at? Super heavy?
I competed at 308 at that time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
that's a big weight class, man. Some guys put some big numbers there.
There just so happened to be a couple freaks at that meet, but
I'm sure.
I mean, it was just what I needed because it lit a fire under me. I was like, hell yeah, these dudes are never beating me again. And then I was hooked. So at that point, I was like, I'm gonna do anything and everything to be the best lifter I can be. And it goes hand in hand with what I do as a strength coach, and I want to look the part for my guys. Like, I want to show my guys, like, hey, I walk the walk. I'm gonna be stronger and bigger than all you guys.
I was gonna say I listened to your podcast with Mark, and he was telling me, and I remember you saying that you lift a little bit sometimes with the guys too as well.
Yeah.
Like to show them what's up. That's
yeah.
So like when you're going in there, are you like, all right, guys, check this out. You're gonna squat with me, and then I'm throwing all the weight on the bar. And now you got to just keep up. Is that like how it goes or what?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always a spur of the moment thing for us. I mean, sometimes we're just in there and dudes are lifting heavy. The energy's right. The music's blasting. It's just like, you know what? I'm going to hop in there and show these dudes something. But then also we'll have open hours on Saturdays where it's a little less structured. We'll kind of have a 2-hour window where guys can come in and we'll have a little workout for them. And a lot of times we'll hop in, lift with them. Do those Saturday workouts with them, and the players like that. We build camaraderie with them. We're going to war in the weight room with them. So
yeah, I was almost just because my guys aren't at that level yet, I was showing them how to sumo deadlift, and I was like, let me just I'm gonna pull back and just coach for right now. But I was like, oh, you can pull 505, and you think, oh, let me just get under there, but no, it was fun, but yeah, so getting to that, now you did your meets, but now you're transitioning into Strongman. Now, how did that come about? I know you got with a coach there, right, in North Carolina, and
so I knew that I was built for Strongman. It's 6'7", 300 plus. It's what I was built for. But Strongman, it just requires so much specialty equipment, and there's huge technique learning curve with all the events, and I didn't have a place that had the equipment. I didn't know a coach that could teach me until I moved to Raleigh. And then it just so happened that down the street, we've got an awesome gym called Spider Strength. And the owner there, he's former America's Strongest Man. He's, awesome, knowledgeable pro strongman. And there's some strong dudes over there, some awesome power lifters, Olympic lifters, and strongman competitors. And I've been training there now for 2 years. and just right there on the edge of getting my pro card in strongman. So that's hoping that this year's the big push for it.
You'll get it, man. You'll get it. You're too big not to get it. Let's put it like that.
I'm
They
gonna
need
get
you.
it.
That's
I'm gonna
it.
get it.
That's
It's
what I'm
just whether or
saying. I
not
like
it's gonna
that.
be this year.
That's it, man. Did you watch Thor's deadlift? Obviously.
Oh yeah, I did. That was like watching the Super Bowl for me.
You know, they finally said that was a legit deadlift. Like, I guess it finally passed in the records.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
Gotcha.
man.
Yeah, they pulled all the stops to make that thing official. I mean, they weighed every single plate before they put it on the bar. They filmed, the scale and everything. So they made sure that thing was legit.
Yeah, it's funny. I recently had Anthony Furman on the podcast.
I know him. He's awesome.
Yeah, so Anthony was like, he's gonna come down. I just recently got a 315-pound stone, and I got the platforms all made. And I was like, what's the heaviest, because he's going to come down and train. I'm like, what's the heaviest stone you can lift? And he's like, oh, I can put it up like 4 something. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, nobody picking that shit up right now. I'm not picking it up. I know that. Maybe you, John. I don't know.
Yeah, those strongman implements, like, you think you're strong when you've been training on a barbell all your life. All of a sudden, you got to pick up those awkward-ass strongman implements, 400-pound stone, the log, the axle. I mean, it's just different. I mean, it's all the barbell lifting you've done, if anything, probably created some bad habits for strongman because, cleaning a log completely different than cleaning a barbell. I mean, picking up an Atlas stone where the center of gravity is, a foot out and 2 feet out in front of you versus a barbell, which is tight to your body. I mean, just everything feels so different. So, I mean, you get into strongman at first, you come in thinking you're strong, you'll leave after 1 week thinking you're not strong compared to those dudes.
That's true, man. I think that's super. I hate the word functional, but in the sense it is. Like, it's super. It has great functionality to everyday life. With my MMA guys, I like to implement that in. Do you use any of that with the football guys?
Yeah, so we will do strongman conditioning for our big men. Now, I mean, if it was possible, I'd incorporate a lot more strongman type training. It's just, the equipment limitations and safety issues makes it a little hard to implement on a, 100-man level scale. But we'll do a lot of conditioning with it. The big guys playing in the trenches, the name of the game is, awkward and violent. You're pushing, pulling, torquing another big man lining up in front of you. And so in the summer, when we do a lot of conditioning, we'll do things like farmer carries, sandbag walks, prowler pushes, sled drags, just having them move, lift, pull awkward implements and do so, short rest, make it a metabolic deal. That is a lot of good transfer over for the O-line where, the receivers, they've got to be in shape to run all day. The O-line, they've got to be in shape to fire off the line, smash into another man, and impose your will on them all game. So the strongman type conditioning is a lot of transfer for those guys.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, when I was playing football, I was in a strongman gym. Tony Montgomery was like my first strength and conditioning coach. He was he's a powerlifter now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know he is.
Yeah, I've known Tony since I was probably 18, 19 years old, and then he was my first strength and conditioning coach when I started MMA, and that was the first time I really got to see like strongman as a training modality. Like, I'm like, all right, perfect. Now I can utilize this for everything, and it's fun, and the variance of it, you know what I mean? So I did see a lot of transfer, especially from a grappling perspective, and like getting in those close quarter positions and being strong in those quasi-isometric positions. Yeah. It's super effective. All right, so there's 2 questions that I always ask all the guests, right? So one may throw you a little bit, but just think about it. You can take some time on it, right? But the first one is always going to be, what is your daily routine, if you have one, and what are the organizations that you utilize to help you be successful every day?
Yeah, so I do have a pretty robotic routine, actually. So I'm a strongman competitor, but I'm a huge believer in living like a bodybuilder as far as the nutrition, the recovery side of things. Just at 6'7", 320 pounds, I'm undersized at the pro level of strongman. I'm gonna have to go against dudes who are my height but weigh 400 pounds. So at this stage of my life, I'm still young, 26. Right now, I'm just trying to put as much muscle in my frame as I possibly can. So for that, I went to the bodybuilders for that. So right now, for the past couple years, I've been living like a bodybuilder, eating 6 meals a day. So right now, I wake up early in the morning, generally 5 a.m. right now, and go and make breakfast. And depending on if I'm on a carb cycling protocol, depending on if it's high carb day, it might be a massive breakfast. If it's my low carb day, it might be a smaller breakfast. And then pack up all my Tupperware meals, head into work, and then we start coaching the first group on the field at early in the morning, and then we're rolling groups throughout the day. And during that time, I'm coaching, eating. Then I lift, coach, eat, come
That's
home,
how it goes.
repeat. So it's kind of just that robotic lifestyle right now, but it's paying dividends.
I'm seeing 303 something with some abs though. So I'll give you that.
Yeah.
At least you're doing that. That's great, man. So, okay. Now, the second question, and this is something that's going to be great for you because you are a strong person. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be physical, like I said. It could be mental. It could be anything there, inspirational. What does a strong person mean to you? What's the definition of a strong person?
That is a good question.
Just think about it. You got it.
Yeah. You know what? I think I've got an answer. So, people see what I do and they say, "Oh, you're so disciplined." And I say, I don't really see what I do as discipline because I love doing this. This is fun to me. I don't see something as being, requiring discipline when you love it. I see something as requiring real discipline when something you don't like to do, when something you don't love doing. So I think strong, someone who's got the ability, the discipline, the patience to do the things that they need to do that they don't want to do, but they do it. Yeah.
And on that one, I'm going to end it on that one, guys. All right. So, Jon, once again, man, I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. If anything, go ahead and let them know where they can find you, Instagram, social media, Facebook, whatever the case. Go ahead and push it right now, brother.
Yep. On Instagram, you can find me at whattheheck71. And that's about it for me on the social media front, but big on Instagram.
Nice. All right, guys. Thanks again. I appreciate you listening. We'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. It was an honor.